Wait a minute, we are live. This is this is how people get in trouble.
You're supposed to be whispering.
Absolutely. No, a whisper doesn't work.
Live from Harvard Hall. So here we go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for being here tonight on this glorious evening. You know, of course, it's beautiful New England weather. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything else. I mean, this is a classic, right? This morning it's snow, rain, you know, locusts, whatever the case may be. But one thing, we're New Englanders, and Courtney Vance from Detroit, so we can handle this, all right? We can handle this. I want to thank you for being here, first of all. As I said before, this is a wonderful, wonderful event, and we want to thank our three wonderful guests that are here. We have Dr. Robin L. Smith here tonight.
Thank you.
Courtney B. Vance. And our moderator extraordinaire, Carmen Fields.
Yes.
So nothing like this happens at the Harvard Club without a team effort. And I'm going to start by saying and thanking the staff, starting with our general manager, Steve Cummings. And there's a group of people that you saw at the registration table when you came in, and there are three of them standing in the back of the room here. They're going to be very shy. Okay, I call them the fun bunch, but they're our member experience team. Let's give them a round of applause. Things like this don't happen without team effort, I said before, and people give me lots of credit for Marcus. You know, you got, you know, Dr. Robin and Courtney and Carmen here, but this started out with a simple conversation from somebody, a stealth fighter, I'm going to call her, okay? One of these people who sort of like, you know, people kind of know, just kind of get things done. And I want to thank her publicly because she's the one who sort of came to me with the idea. And she said, what do you think? I said, we can get this done. Christina Blau, please, Christina, stand up and take your bows.
Christina! Christina!
And last but not least is that all of you got a signed copy of the book, all right? And that doesn't come from magic, all right? We have two wonderful folks who sponsored this, and I want to thank, where's my friend Bethia Carter? Bethia, she's the president of the New England Blacks in Philanthropy. Oh no, Bethia, stand up, Bethia, stand up. There you go. And also the Higginson 1908 Foundation, 1908 Foundation here at the Harvard Club, which is funded by the members. So those two groups made sure that everyone here had a signed book tonight, and I think that's wonderful. Thanks again. So now on with our talk. This is really a special moment that to have this wonderful book, a very insightful, inspirational book. Anybody who's sort of paid attention to sort of the publicity of this book, Oprah has interviewed our two authors, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, the list is endless, but it's a topic that is near and dear to lots of people's hearts here, and it's a societal issue. And I think that we're going to hear some wonderful things about it, the progression of this book, how this got started tonight, and where we are today with this issue. And this is not sort of like a destination, but a journey, right? A very important journey. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you again for the courage of Courtney Vance and the expertise of Dr. Smith, sort of bringing this subject to light. And again, this is not a destination, but a journey. So I'm going to turn it over to our award-winning journalist, print and TV journalist, Carmen Fields. And for those you don't know, she's also an author who wrote a wonderful book about her father and his influence on jazz music in Boston. So you should look that up also, okay? Look that up also. So without further ado, Carmen Fields.
Greetings again, everybody. It is my distinct honor to lead a conversation on this very important topic, mental health and Black men. Mental health is often the headline when in connection with mass gun violence. It's often viewed by some as the primary cause of death, eclipsing the notion of easy access to automatic weapons. But ever so steadily and quietly, below the radar, the number of families, particularly Black families, touched by suicide is growing. For many years, suicide and other mental health concerns were whispered about, often in shame, or there was a veil of silence about the topic. Gradually, more people in our community are speaking up and speaking out. One of the most recent and boldest examples comes from our guests tonight, actor Courtney Vance and psychologist Dr. Robin L. Smith. They each bring a special perspective to the topic. Mr. Vance as an award-winning actor, stage, television, and the movies. Dr. Robin as a psychologist on and off television with a PhD in counseling and a degree in theology. Their book is The Invisible Ache: Black Men Identifying Their Pain and Reclaiming Their Power. Some of you sent questions for our guests when you registered for this event. I plan to fold them in with those that I have prepared. And the first question, ladies and gentlemen, one of the first questions from the audience that I had too, what inspired you, Courtney, to write this book? And I'm adding, how did the two of you meet? And Dr. Robin, what brought you to this project?
Yeah.
That's 3 questions.
That is 3 questions.
She's tricky.
She is.
Are we gonna?
We count.
Can we deal with her?
I think we can. Let's
Talk about her like she's here.
I know.
Well,
So
how should we?
Well, I'll tell you, and I know you, first of all, I want to thank you. We are running late because I was stuck on a plane. I was in Philadelphia, that's my home, and the planes were not moving. And there was nothing I could do. It's important that I arrived here, and by the way, the book being signed was supposed to be both of us, so I apologize that you have Courtney's signature and not mine because I was on the plane, but it's important, your question, about how we see each other. Do we see each other? When we were waiting outside to come in, I got a glimpse of who I think are possibly maybe the servers.
The wait staff, yes.
And I wasn't sure, whether they were wait staff, who they were, but I just saw them. And I said, good evening, hello. And they lit up. And one of them said, thank you for seeing us. And so this book, The Invisible Ache, Black Men Identifying Their Pain and Reclaiming Their Power, is very much about how invisible, how painful it is to not be seen. What it feels like when you see other people light up. And Black boys and men have found themselves either invisible or, if they are seen almost as if they are prey being stalked. So I wanted to just say that as a foundation about the power of being seen, and that invisibility is really soul murder. It really murders the soul when we are aching or struggling and people are afraid maybe to see us, are ashamed of seeing us. We may be afraid to see ourselves. And so I'll let Courtney share some of the details of his journey. I will say this part, that his father, 33 years ago, died by suicide. And his godson, 3 years ago, now it's actually 34 years because we're in 2024, So 34 years ago, Courtney's father died by suicide, and 4 years ago, his bright, brilliant, promising godson also died by suicide. And so Courtney can begin to talk about what those lives and deaths meant and how it awakened something in you.
Well, I'll piggyback on you, Dr. Robin, and we'll deal with the 9 questions that you asked in the first part. But just the being seen. There's a different generation. Our parents, and for the folks, most of the folks here, kind of my generation, our generation. So there was no judgments because people did the best they could, and they still do the best. Well, they did the best they could back then.
Yeah.
I'll just say. There was no, therapist to go to figure out when we left the all-black public school district and went to the all-white Catholic school. And that was my generation. But for my mother and father, our mothers and fathers, there was not, at least in the black community. The white community is different, could be. But for our generation, our parents, there was no, when they came up from wherever they came up from, there was no, and my father was a foster child. And so he didn't think his mother wanted him. If he had lived long enough, he'd have found out that he was taken from his mother, and his older brother was was raised by his mother's sister. But they didn't know, there was nobody to take care of my father, so they put him in the foster system. And my wife and I did the program Finding Your Roots, Skip Gates, Finding Your Roots. And we came to find out that my father's side of the family was looking for him. And that we were talking to them and in Chicago, and they were saying that, Courtney, that your dad's mother, your grandmother, was saying, every now and then she would say, "Where's my boy? What happened to my boy? Somebody took my boy." And they didn't know what she was saying, what she was referring to. Come to find out, she was talking about my father. And so if he had lived long enough, he would have found out that his mother was looking for him, he was looking for his mother, and he would have, been able to hopefully heal from that. But I came to this recognizing that that's enough. I lost my daddy, I lost my godson, who did everything. His parents did everything right. My godson did everything right during the pandemic. Took him into, had some chemical imbalance, took him into the hospital. But of course at that time, the parents couldn't go in and advocate for their son. So he went in, 23-year-old, and after 2 hours came out and said, "Yeah, everything's fine, come on, let's go." And they were like, what do you mean? They said, "I'm fine, they interviewed me, blah, 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 let's go home." And so, second time it happened, he had an episode, they took him back, but he wasn't having an episode while he was there. So, same thing happened. He needed some medication, obviously. My sister's been on medication for 30 years or so, and been in therapy for the same amount of time. But, there's no shame on it. There's no shame in it. But the shame is that, he's just one individual. Yeah. How many people during the pandemic, how many families went through because they couldn't go in, people couldn't do funerals, they couldn't, 10 people in a funeral, 10 people at a wedding, no graduations. I mean, the trauma, the collective trauma of what happened during the pandemic will be incalculable. I guess we'll figure it out a little later, but there's an epidemic, especially among our young people, and Dr. Robin will speak to it, the children are suffering because, number one, we don't talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. We never have. It's too much. And, number two, it's uncomfortable. Excuse me. It's uncomfortable. So, but we have to deal with the uncomfortability of this because the ramifications of it are death. I can't hear another, just because we were talking, Fatima, there you are. Fatima and I, Dr. Fatima, we were talking about, men, and there's another one down about prostate cancer and prostate. And, my grandfather died of, we're not talking about prostate cancer, but my grandfather died of prostate cancer. And I, at 30 years old, I said, I'm going to get checked every 6 months. I'm going in. And, I would rather, what the nightmare for me is having a white coat come up to me and just shake their head. If only you had, if I got to bend over, I'm just going to bend over. I don't care.
But it's important. We promise we're going to let you answer.
Yes.
Okay.
She had 10 questions. Now, should we let her in? It's Dr. Robin.
We should, but I have to just say,
Okay.
there's a reason why Black boys and men in general often, and boys, don't claim their feelings. I always say that tears are our teacher, but it depends on who it is that has been in your head. I had something come up on my computer recently, and it said, verify you are human. So it's the I'm not a robot, but this was more than that. This was verify that you are human. And so because Black people were told that they were only 3/5 human, and that was only for money reasons. It was for economics. So this wasn't even that you were 3/5 human. This will work on my tax.
Transaction.
Yeah, this is transactional. And so there is something in the air for Black boys and men about still being unsure that they are fully human. So I talk about holes. We all have holes, Holes. Longing to be whole, WHOLE, which is a holy, HOLY journey. But if we don't hear people talking about their holes, if you ask someone what they're doing, they might say, I'm going to the dentist. But you don't hear Black people often talking about, I'm going to therapy. So there's something about vulnerability, which is actually your superpower. I don't know if you knew that. Vulnerability is your superpower. It is the claiming of your whole and full self. And so what we are doing in this book is dismantling the lie. The lie that vulnerability means weakness. The lie that, when little girls fall down and we pick them up and we kiss their boo-boo, and boys fall and we tell him to get up and stop that crying. And so how is it that a boy and a man, could claim his wholeness if the society and people in their family and in the culture are chipping away at what it means to be fully and wholly human?
And you put pen to paper. Why, Courtney?
Because
Okay, all right.
I had said that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
After my godson died, I said this has to stop. I have to say something. And our publicist Miss Gilda Squire, I reached out to her and said, what do we do? What do I do? And she said, well, let me think about it. And she, the manager, publicist, said, I think I may have someone. Why don't we put the two of you together and see what you all think? And it was a very, very good match. Did that answer?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And hindsight being what it is, can you share with us what you and your family were missing about your dad's struggle that helped inform the book in the special way that it is?
Well, what we were missing was everything. He didn't share anything. There was one point where we were driving, my mother and he were driving somewhere in Chicago. He was from Chicago. And he passed some place, and I don't know why I remember Indiana. And he said, I know this, I remember that. And so my mother said, stop, what is this? Let's talk about it. And he just drove on. He said, no. So he never really wanted to. It was too painful. And I think when things got roughest, and my therapist, of course, years later said if he had been her client patient, she would have put him in the hospital just to save his life. But it was he was there for us, and she had said you had him longer than he stayed longer than he stayed a long time for as much pain as he was in. But go ahead.
Courtney, I think the other thing that is so important about two things. One, about your father, and really to your question. And then something about Courtney's mother, and I'll start with his mother. After his father's death, when he and his sister were going back to their respective cities and homes, his mother said, I want you to do something. We're going to all go to therapy when we get home. She didn't say, as parents sometimes do what I say, not what I do. She put herself in the mix. She didn't send them home with the mandate to keep the secret. Because when we start keeping secrets, it means that at least our perception, our experience, is that there is something shameful, something that we need to hide. So this wasn't, don't ever speak about this outside of this house again. And just let me say this. There are people in this room who have lost a loved one to suicide. There are people in this room, quite possibly, who may be thinking of suicide yourself. And so what's important about this is that despair is not something to be ashamed of. When we are running out of gas and we feel hopeless, unfortunately, because we don't have people saying and telling their own truth, it makes us feel as if somehow we are different, that there is something pathological about us or weak about us. And so the other point I wanted to make about your father, when you said he held on so long, that and Courtney has often been asked, is there something you would have done differently? See, this Monday morning quarterbacking, this woulda, coulda, shoulda, that's only because we now know what we know. And so I want to invite all of us tonight to use our courage, the French, the root of cœur is heart. So courage is really the wholehearted living. That's what courage is. It isn't never let them see you sweat. I often say that's great for a deodorant commercial. It is not good for the soul. It is not good for your life. It is not good for your heart. And so his father was struggling. But if you don't know that, and Courtney said, my dad was my hero. And I said, this is what's so important, and remained your hero even when he took his life. Because his father, like the rest of us, became even more real, more whole. And of course, we would have wanted to get him help. But a lot of times, and that's what this book is about, it is about breaking the silence, that silence is often not golden, it's deadly. It's deadly. It kills the soul because it makes people think that there is something wrong with them.
And especially now with the young people, and there's no excuse now because, our children struggle. They go to a high functioning, high intense secondary school, and I always say, if we've got to take a step back from the intensity, from the achieving, let's take a step back. Let's take a mental wellness day. Let's stay home from school for, if it's a day, if it's a week, call the school. We'll call the school and talk to them. If there's something going on, at school with the teachers, let's have a conversation. But we lost 4 young people at our secondary school last year, and it's no more. That take a break. Be the institution that helps that trend. That's the school that is the model for the transition. That we were our high functioning school, but we decided our young people are more important than our grade point average, our number, all the young people we get into college. We can get back to that, but we can't lose another young person. And, it's just about in this age that this time that we're living in when it's, yeah, I did it, what about it? Sue me. And that whole mentality, that's the spirit is in our community. The young people see that. They see that it doesn't matter. The end result is all that matters. How I get there is all that matters. That's what we're telling them. And so they don't respect us because who can I respect today? So it's really, really important that since we're in this space and we say we're about something, but, show them. Let's show them. Let's take the time to show them. Let's have the conversation at the dinner table. Let's, what's wrong? Tell me Dad or Mom, I really, you're just too much. You're too, okay, wow.
And have the conversation that you're afraid to have. If we're not having conversations that that stir up our vulnerability, then they're probably not real conversations. If you feel completely in control, if you feel as if I've got this, then something's missing because there is something about entering into conversations that make us uncomfortable. That is the beginning of transformation.
I'd rather be uncomfortable than lose my child.
Absolutely. And Courtney just said, say that again.
I'd rather be uncomfortable than lose my child.
And what's so important about that is so many of us think it won't be my child. It won't be my child. It won't be my nephew. It's not going to come in my house. And a part of what we are here to do is to say it will come into everyone's house if it wants to. That despair and depression are not, they are no respecter of person. And so this is important, that the fantasy that something will not harm you and your lineage. And the other piece about conversations that's important, when you said, can we hear from our children? Can we hear also from our partners when we're talking about men? Instead of reassuring them that, oh, no, you didn't understand. I actually am in your corner. They just said that they felt like you don't hear them. And now you're going to do your laundry list, whether you are the wife or the partner or the mother or the whomever, of your goodness. And so if you can become curious about where you are both victim and perpetrator. You are victim to someone, and you are perpetrator to someone else. And that will make you uncomfortable, and it will make me uncomfortable. And it also could save your life, your child's life. When people have asked, what should I say or not say to someone who is talking about suicide? The worst thing, and I did a Anderson Cooper show for those of you who do not know, Anderson's brother died when he was young of suicide, and his mother, Gloria Vanderbilt. So I did a show, and Anderson it was his daytime show that he used to have, and his mother was there. And he said, tell us the do's and the don'ts. And I said, well, you never tell someone that's in pain. Don't hurt. How offensive is it when we ache to have someone disqualify you or me as if somehow our pain is not real? And so if you know someone or you are that person, what we want to invite you to do is open yourself up to hear someone's ache.
You mentioned what Courtney's mom instructed the family to do to get into therapy. Finding a therapist wasn't as easy as one might think, at least as you told the story, Courtney Vance. Guide us through some of that journey and what the appropriate therapist for you, what it took to find.
It's a journey. It's but pain is a journey. I had no idea I needed to be in therapy. When I finally found my person, I talked a mile a minute for the entire session. And Dr. Kornfeld, short little Jewish lady, about 5 feet from the ground. She was my person. I loved her life. She said at the end of the session, she said, Courtney, you don't have to tell me everything today. But I had no idea what it was about. I didn't know Dr. Robin, I thought I was supposed to, have a black therapist, and I sat with this black woman who looked very, pulled together, and I thought, wow, this is it. And I sat there in her office for about 46 minutes, not 50, not 40, 46 minutes. 46 minutes, and she said, she didn't say anything. I looked at her, she looked at me, and I said, what we're supposed to do, but it's just what it is. And so I had my head in my hands, and she said, do you have a headache? That's the only thing she said. I said, no, I don't have a headache. I just don't know what to help me, so she couldn't. And so that just wasn't my person, but I
How did you find your person?
Okay, she's pushing me to. So I came back from my taking care of my sister and I taking care of my mom, and I came back to 6 Degrees of Separation, the Broadway show I was doing for a year and a half, and I came back in, and at in between shows on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I went and got massages. So Laura Linney, famous Laura Linney, she stood by. She was an understudy back in the day, and so she said, "Courtney, do you mind if I gift you?" I said, "No problem. Thank you so much." Thank you so much. So I went to her person. Her person's name was Gunilla Asp. And so I laid on the table, and Gunilla said, "Is there anything I should know before you start, Courtney?" And I said, "Well, my father just died of suicide, and I broke and she broke, and that's how we started." And when we finished, she said, "I think I know the perfect person for you." And so that night, I went to sleep. She told me that person's name. Went to sleep, and I had a dream. I never dreamt before I had a dream. And in my dream, there was this pattern, like say it was your pants. It was that pattern. So the next day or a couple of days, I went and met Dr. Cornfield. I called her Dr. K. Went and met Dr. K and shook her hand. As soon as I shook her hand, I knew she was my person. And then she said she had two sides to her office, and she had 2 offices. So I looked to the right. She said, "This right office there, there's a long hallway, and then there was an office over there." I looked to the right, and it was very sterile and cold. She said, "You can go to the left," and I looked over there. There was a couch, and on the couch was a pillow with that pattern on it. So I knew that was, I knew when I shook her hand, but that's where I was going to be. And so then she challenged me. She would challenge me. She challenged me. She said, how do you make decisions? I said, "Well, like everyone else, I flip a coin." And she said, "Got it. Okay, now
You're right.
we'll probably be doing 2 sessions a week very shortly." And then she said, "Courtney, do you have further on, she said, do you have the patience to let the mud settle in the water and the water become clear?" I said, "Hell no. No way. I got to go. I got to do things. We got to get moving." And so, she challenged me. And then the final thing she did, she said, "Courtney, do you," and I didn't realize till, recently, that where she got it from, because when we first met, it was on a dream.
Yeah.
She said, "Courtney, I want you to, do you dream?" I said, "No, I don't dream. I don't know. Why do you ask?" Duh. So she said, "I'd like you to get my dreams." And that was the end of the session, and we moved on. I was like, okay, how do I do? Thank you so much. I have to figure this out. But I'm somebody that don't challenge me. Give me a challenge. So I eventually, you don't want me to go into this.
Well,
You don't want me to
my next question, or I have 2 next questions. Dr. Robin,
Yes.
he mentioned Dr. K is not a Black therapist. Do Blacks need to talk to someone Black or Christian, or you have a checklist that can help give us some guidance on what to look for and how to choose?
Yes. So I love this question. Over all of the years of being in practice and being on television, I've had people say to me, I need to find a therapist, particularly if they're African American. I need to find a Black therapist. And if they're Christian, I need to find a Black Christian therapist. And so often I could have been on the phone with someone who just, happened to be able to reach me. And I'd listen. And again, these are strangers. And I had a question, which is, if you need heart surgery, are you going to ask that your cardiac thoracic surgeon looks like you, worships like you? Usually not. You're going to ask one very important question. Can you get me off the table alive? And so for a therapist, this is really the same question. Just like you were talking about the waitstaff, do you have the capacity to see me? That's what we want to know, is do you have the capacity to see me? And so someone who mirrors your belief system may or may not be, or your race or your sexual orientation may or may not be. And so it's not that you can't find someone who may share some of your beliefs, but how limiting, how scared we are to let ourselves be known by someone who we think is so different. The other thing I just want to say, Courtney, when you were mentioning and about your mother and, and Dr. K and getting the dreams, the issue of suffering is a very important one, where people will say, I'm afraid to go to therapy. I'm afraid of what I'll learn about myself. I'm afraid of what I will discover about my family. I'm afraid. And I get that. I have a family, and I have all kinds of things that have gone well and that have also fallen apart. But it's interesting that we're not afraid to suffer more.
Who?
And you know why? Because we know how to do it. We know how to suffer. We know how to not have our needs met. We know how to feel invisible. And so I just want to also, when we're talking about finding a therapist or a person, because it's not always someone you're paying. It could be the barber who actually is one of the few people, or the bus driver who says, how are you? Or you're not looking like yourself. Everyone else sees you. Everyone else gets the airbrushed image of you. And the bus or train, that person says, are you okay?
Chapter 9, Take Good Care is the title of that chapter. Courtney Vance talks about prayer and answering a call from God. Tell us about that chapter.
Well, I think how to become one in a marriage, as those who are married, they know that it is a mystery. And my wife's first 3 years of marriage were difficult. And so, I have a very strong sense of, excellence and all. I tried to apply that to the marriage, and that didn't work too well. So I ended up in a hospital with, I don't know what you call it, anxiety attack? Or
Panic attack.
nervous breakdown.
Well, it's interesting. Nervous breakdown, panic attack. You were gripped.
Yeah.
Whatever we want to call that.
Yeah.
Life was too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And feeling all of the failure of a man and a husband, laying in the bed, tears running down my face. And I hear my wife and our doctor, Dr. William Young, God rest his soul, whispering in the background. I know there's nothing physically wrong with him, but I know of a good psychologist. Her name was Dr. Robin Smith. No. But and so I heard a voice say, "Are you ready now, Courtney? I've been waiting for you. Are you ready now?" And I said, "Got it." I called, as I said, "Baby, come on, let's go." But Courtney, doctor, I know, but I let's go home. Let's go home. And I went home and dusted off that Bible that was sitting next on the bedstand that was been there for my whole life. Because I had a godly counselor that while I was working out, and he would be telling me, you know, we're doing everything, but you still gotta read the book, Court. You gotta get the instructions, and so I said, yeah, Doc, yeah, because it didn't hit me until I realized I had gotten to the edge of my self that I needed help. I needed help that nobody could give me. I couldn't. My dad was gone. My mom was. I needed a word to try to figure out how to help us, my wife and I. My wife couldn't do it. And so I got in that book and read it cover to cover. And I still did all the other things I had to do. I still I went to the flower mart on every Tuesday and put flowers all over the house because I know she liked it. I went and did my work. I did my workouts. I did did everything. But when I had any free time, I was in that book, so much so that my wife said, when someone would say, we want Courtney to read it, she said, oh no, he ain't gonna read that. He's not going nowhere. My husband's right in this book. That's all he doing. You need me to give it to me, I'll give it to you. No, don't mess with him. And so eventually, into all the things that I was worried about what she wasn't doing, she started to focus on what do I need, because she knew what I was doing. And Courtney, are you okay? Do you need me to go get you something No, I'm good, baby. I made you some dinner. Do you? Right, I was just. So, it ultimately, as I stopped focusing on what she was not doing and focusing on what I was doing, and that she was fine. And what she was looking for is to see if I was the man that she married. And not bugging her about what she ain't doing. Are you who you say you are? And once she saw that, she started to be able to turn and give me what I needed. So, did I answer your question? No.
Well,
Sort of.
I mean, right, sort of. But I do want to say this, the part about self-care, which is what you're really asking, and what you responded.
You see what I do.
In the book, in The Invisible Man, we talk about... Invisible Man, well, that's a Freudian slip, which is important.
Same thing, though.
Well, I was going to say, if those of you who have not read The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison...
Might want to pick that up and get an A themselves.
I mean, but yeah, absolutely. There's a quote from that book that says, there's nothing more dangerous than people who are sleepwalking through life. That's in The Invisible Man. Yeah. But self-care is something that's essential because boys and men are often not taught how to really care for themselves. And so what you're describing is that as you learned that you were worthy of your own pleasures, worthy of your own healing, worthy of your own care, it's important because this is something that often is not taught to boys and men. And so I just want to highlight how important, because your question really is, how important it is to ask yourself, every man who is in this room, Black and other, how are you taking care of yourself? Do you know what you really want and need? What do you do with your pain? What do you do with disappointment? Do you make spaces, or anyone who you can tell the truth to? And can you tell the truth to yourself? Because it is not only that we are often not sharing with the other, It is that we are on the run from ourselves.
And that's what I think that started my journey, is that I had gotten to the edge of, I'd messed up with my college sweetheart. I messed that up. I said, I'm going to get, I have to now start to do right for me.
For you.
For me, and it meant, that happened in the midst of therapy, and my therapist was in the middle of it, and she saw it happening, and I ran from my college sweetheart to another young lady, and my therapist, Dr. K, said, "Courtney, do you mind if I meet the young lady that you ran to? I mean, not ran to, but that you did her." Do you mind? And so I said, "No, Doc, because, I love her and da-da-da-da-da." Lord have mercy. So we literally met for lunch. And, had a wonderful time and went back to, everybody went their separate ways. I had my session the next, whenever that was. And she said, "Courtney, she's a girl. She's not a woman." Yeah. I said, "I know, Doc." And it really began. I said, "I'm not going to run from this situation." And it really began my journey of dealing, because she let me see myself.
Yeah. Without shame.
Without shame.
And without blame, without humiliation. It's so hard to see ourselves when someone is there to bring that gavel down. And so there's something...
And my mother, my father, my uncle, my father wasn't there, but everyone saw it but me. Yeah. And they saw what I was doing, and they were like, "Courtney, what are you doing?"
Right. So how important it is that in The Invisible Ache, we are inviting every reader, not just men, boys, but the women who love them. We're really inviting everyone to come to the floor of your own life. I often will say it's like an old-fashioned, don't get scared, an old-fashioned revival where people would come on down. And this is not to meet God, it's to meet yourself. It's to meet you and the you have been longing for and running from all of your life. Love After Love, we have in the book by Derek Walcott. And I won't quote the whole thing, it's a poem, Love After Love, but it says, "The time will come when with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, 'Sit here, eat.' You will love again the stranger who was yourself." That's what The Invisible Ache is about. It is about calling you to the floor, the holy floor, with holes, long to be whole, which is a holy journey, calling you to the sacred floor of your own life.
The perfect spot to put a pin in it, as we say down south. Thank you, Courtney Vance. Thank you, Dr. Robin L. Smith, for this fine work. Thank you to the audience for your attention and for coming in spite of this inclement weather. Special thanks to the New England Blacks in Philanthropy and the Higginson 1908 Foundation for their generous contribution of the free books. Ladies and gentlemen, safe travels.
Yeah.
Good night.
Oh, and also, Courtney just asked, which this is going to completely turn things upside down, but why not, right? If you do want me to sign your book,
Yes.
I will do that. So I know everyone wants to get home, and I will not be upset if you decide to, not do it. But I want you to know that I'm available and will take the time. Again, I apologize for not being here, but I do trust that this happened exactly as it was meant to. And thank you so much, so much.
Thank all three of you for a very inspiring evening. I think we all enjoyed what you had to say, and it gives us lots to think about, our own journeys, which is very, very important. There's coffee and dessert afterwards for everybody in the lobby. And one thing people heard me say before, I'll say it again because I think it's really very, very important here at the Harvard Club. These events don't happen, on their own. It takes 4 basic elements: the concept, all right, the planning, the execution, and the participation. You are all a part of this. Thank you again. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Amazing.